Hi, you're watching 20 Questions with. I'm Harry Reardon. Thank you so much for watching. Before you do anything, hit the bell, like, subscribe, jump down to the comments as well, and just say something nice. How you doing?
How you doing? I'm all right, thanks.
And would you like to introduce yourself, Chris?
Okay, but my name's Chris White. I don't go about that name on the internet because I don't really like it very much, but we'll probably go into that later on. I'm 45, and we're going to talk about alexithymia and such like this. But I've also got gender identity issues and sexuality identity issues and that type of thing, which we might discuss later on. Um, I'm I'm just a simple person with a complex, I think.
So, first of all, can you explain what alexithymia is for those who are not familiar with it?
Alexithymia is a difficulty in understanding and expressing emotions. So, for example, find it very difficult to make connections with people, direct connections with people. And I find it very hard to read people's expressions, people's faces. I'm quite face blind at things like that. And it's what I try to say is I don't dislike people or anything like this, but I don't sort of connect with them on an interpersonal level. If somebody's struggling, I want to help them. I'll instantly want to help them, but it's more situational rather than personal. And it does make me feel quite guilty sometimes when I've got friends, but I need to have a sort of like mutual interest or an interpersonal connection to do with something that we have in common, rather than liking somebody just for them being them.
Yeah.
But also get a lot of mix up between emotions because, say for example, one example I use is if I have motorbikes. If I ever fall off a motorbike, instead of being shocked or upset or anything like this, I burst out laughing. It just makes me laugh for no reason, and it's like the emotion doesn't connect properly with what's going on. So I wouldn't say I'm totally emotionless. I'm certainly not sociopathic or anything like this. That's what a lot of people tend to say with alexithymia. Oh, you've got no emotions. You're sociopathic. It's not that I don't have emotions, but those emotions tend to be brief and not all that intense.
The dealing with sociopathic people, that's a specialty on this channel, so it's not. It's all right. We've been got a good understanding of that recently. How do these sort of things affect your life? Like, how, day to day, like how do your friends feel about like how when this is how you deal with things?
Luckily, my friends are very good people. They know I need my space sometimes, and most of my friends have been found through different hobbies, such as I like to play airsoft. Obviously, as I say, I've got motorbikes. So these are types of things where you have short, brief interactions with people, but then you're mostly on your own or dealing with your own thing. And say like if we're out on motorbikes, and other times we meet up and we have a bit of a chat and this type of thing. But sometimes I get socially fatigued very quickly because if the conversation isn't on something that I've got a mutual interest in, my mind I just get fatigued very easily. I'm not much for small talk because that type of thing never really interests me. So obviously when I'm on the bikes and I get my isolation and I deal with it that way. But yeah, my friends are fantastic because they know I'm in the inner space, but they're always there if I need them. And every now and again, they'll always check in on me if I've been quiet for a while and say, are you okay? And try to include me in things. They really are the best friends I could ask for.
That's cool. Can you give
Well,
an example of an occasion when you were unable to recognize what emotions you were feeling?
Basically, well, maybe a good example is say at work when I need to talk to a manager about something. I had a situation some time ago. I'm a bus driver, so there were some scheduling issues on one of the routes, and I wanted to talk to him about it. And I should have got in there. I'd planned out what I was going to say. I should have got in there confident. He's a nice guy, really nice guy. No problem with him at all. But I just went into blind panic. and it could be that bad where I actually forget to breathe, and it's just, as I say, it's not like it was a situation where I was in trouble for anything like this. It was a casual conversation about a schedule issue at work, but to me, it just sent me into complete anxious panic. But as I say, I mean, the situation, like if I fall off a motorbike, I had one some years ago, slipped off in the snow, I was straight down on the floor, and I was strapped underneath the bike. But rather than being in pain or panicking or like, oh no, I just burst out laughing, and it just crosses over sometimes the way that my mind works, like that.
How do you know you're experiencing an emotion if you're unable to identify it?
I don't really. That's the thing. I mean, most of the time I just live in an emotional void. I don't feel things most of the time. I just don't feel anything. I just feel like I'm just an empty box in a flesh shell. I mean, another example, I collect Transformers toys and things like this, and I'll see something online. Oh, I really want that particular character, that particular toy, and it'll, I'll buy it. It'll consume me until it arrives, and as soon as I've got it, I take it out of the box. It's just like, oh, that's it, and then move on to the next thing. So, like I was saying before, my emotions tend to be brief. They don't really last very long, and then I go back to my normal state of being just null.
What about when it comes to like your family? Do you still feel love?
Not particularly, no. I have no idea what it feels like. I honestly have no idea what it feels like. My parents both passed away in 2008, 19 days apart. And for a couple of months afterwards, I was getting angry at myself because I couldn't feel anything. Because my brain had just gone, okay, this has happened. Now I'm going to start moving on with something else.
Yeah.
And I was not quite self-harming, but I was getting into such rage at myself because I was unable to experience any kind of sorrow or remorse over it.
Yeah.
And I still don't. I mean, sometimes now I'll remember something that happened, say, a particular happy moment, and it'll make me happy or maybe cry, perhaps remembering them, but it's always situational rather than personal. Yeah. And again, like with my sister, I mean, she's a great person. She's always been a good sister to me and everything like this. But then we can go for months or sometimes even years without any kind of contact with each other. And I've gotten a bit better since I've started working out that I'm potentially autistic. But I still find it very difficult to keep in contact with people because the obligation of socializing, it tends to overwhelm me a bit.
Some people with alexithymia report being worried about people thinking they're sociopathic or psychotic because of issues with their emotional responses. Is this something you've experienced? I know we have just briefly touched on this.
Yeah, it's something that worries me. I mean, the first thing I try to explain to somebody is, everybody's different. Everybody experiences emotions differently. There are people who are hyper feelers, who they get upset at every slight little thing, which, I'm not saying that they're particularly wrong, but I just simply can't do that. And in a way, alexithymia protects me, I think, from emotional trauma, from over feeling and over expressing of emotions. But as I try to explain to people, I don't have affection for people, but it doesn't mean I lack empathy. I still feel empathetic. If I see, say, a video of an animal in distress, or if somebody falls over in the street, I have an instant urge to go and help them. But that connection, that empathy, isn't particularly personal between me and that person. It's situational. But we're not complete. We're not all, at least, hopefully. People with alexithymia, we're not emotionally empty. We're not sociopathic. We're, I suppose you could say, asocial in a way. We struggle or get overwhelmed by societal responsibility.
Yeah. Is there something that happened to you as a child that triggered this as an emotional response? Maybe something
Not
that
particularly.
happened? No?
Yeah. I was never left alone without parents. I never had to experience my parents fighting or anything like this. I've never been attacked or particularly bullied or anything like this. There's no reason really, I don't think, that could have set this off.
What do you think are the main barriers associated with alexithymia?
Um, this world is always telling us that you should love, and it's in media, it's in your music, your TV programs, and people are told that love and romance and getting married and starting families are the most important and precious things in life. But the desire to do those things is something that I'll never experience. Because as I was saying earlier, with my sexual identity and such like this, I'm aromantic, asexual, and aplatonic, which basically means I have no sexual interest in anybody, no sexual desire for anybody. I have no romantic desire for anybody, and I have no platonic desire, which basically means I don't experience any kind of emotional connection between myself and anybody else. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like I say, I like my friends. My friends are awesome, but I don't have any kind of emotional feelings or attachment to them. I don't create those kind of bonds. And it's hard to explain to somebody that I can go through life and happy and, without needing those interpersonal connections.
So you're not lonely?
Not particularly, no. I mean, I can be happily on my own for a long periods of time. I mean, like during COVID last year, when we could go months without having to be able to see anybody, I was okay with that. I did okay, and I can't imagine what it must be like for somebody who needs that kind of social contact. How difficult it must have been for them.
Yeah.
But for me, as long as I still had the computer, I could still talk to somebody if I needed to. I was happy just chugging along on my own.
Yeah.
And I've got to be honest, I actually feel guilty about that. Because I want to be more involved with my friends. I want to be more involved with society in general. But I can only do it for so long, and then I just burn out.
Yeah. Are there any advantages to having alexithymia?
I don't know. I mean, I suppose I was saying, I guess I'm not easily swayed emotionally. I'm not drawn into situations that could be dangerous to me, emotionally or physically, because alexithymia kind of acts as a security bubble around my brain to protect me. For example, falling into bad relationships. I mean, I know loads of people. You hear people at work all the time saying about, they're having a divorce, they married the wrong person, they really hate their ex and this type of thing. And that's something that I'll never particularly ever have to face. I'll never have to have somebody tearing apart my emotional psyche because I don't make those bonds in the first place. So I think that's, if there is a benefit, that's probably the only one, or probably the best one at least.
Yeah. So can you talk a little bit about being aplatonic? Like we just have, but can you go into that just a little bit?
Yeah, basically, it's just I don't feel the need for a tight or strict social connection with anybody. I mean, I did have a partner. I've nearly said romantic partner then, but I didn't really love her. I didn't have any kind of romantic interest in her. I did have a sexual partner when I was much younger, and I just never felt anything at all. And it's the same with family, same with my close friends and such like this. I don't feel the need to do things spontaneously, socially, and like with my parents, I don't think I've ever experienced what love for them would be like. I loved the social connection, I suppose, was obviously it had a big effect on me. You can't live with somebody for that amount of time and it not having a social effect on you. But the need to be around them, I could happily go days, weeks without seeing them if I wanted to. And again, that's something that gives me quite a bit of guilt, really, because your parents are supposed to be the people who they nurture you, they protect you, and for me to feel nothing after all that, it's difficult to experience. It really is. Once you realise, that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
That's what you're going through.
Do you think it's connected to your alexithymia?
Very much so. Yeah, I think everything basically comes down to neurodiversity. I mean, as I say, I'm waiting for an assessment for autism, but I've suspected I've been autistic since I first took the AQ test when I was 31. I just haven't done anything about it till this year, and yeah, I think that's the root cause of everything. My gender identity, my sexual identity, and everything. The way I explain that is, I might be completely off base, but the way I explain it to myself and I suppose to others is that the thoughts and feelings that I have don't go to the correct parts of the brain. Whereas most people, you see something that makes you happy, and immediately that thought goes from your eye to the right part of your brain for you to process. Whereas with me, the signal gets crossed somewhere inside there. And I think that's everything. That's the root cause of everything with me. I just can't connect up the right emotional and thinking parts of the brain with what I'm seeing. There's that disconnect there. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of anything called depersonalization and derealization. No, well, basically, I think this is another part of the alexithymia. I often feel like I'm not a real person. I often feel the world around me is not real, and sometimes I could be on a city street with loads of people walking near me, and I just don't feel like I'm one of these people. I feel like I'm something else, trying to hide myself. What you see in my face, my body, and everything like this is just a show. But I don't belong amongst these people. Even in crowds, I mean, I've been to a couple of Pride events because, again, I'm part of the LGBT. And, when you're at the stage and there's people dancing and stuff like this, I just feel like if I do something, everybody will be watching me. Everything comes back to me. And it sounds like a very egotistical way to think, but honestly, my self-esteem issues, that has stopped my ego playing a part in this. But I just feel like I'm so isolated, even when amongst a lot of other people.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like sometimes, obviously, when you're playing a computer game, say you're playing a game and you're walking along, and you know that you are not the person who's on the screen. You're controlling the person by remote control, the character by remote control. I feel that's what I'm doing sometimes with my own body.
Right.
I'm this little, I don't know, entity within this body that's controlling it remotely. And that can be very difficult.
Where does being asexual come into the LGBTQ?
Well, a lot of the acronyms, the X of the acronyms is LGBTQIA, and the A effectively stands for asexual and aromantic, right, or aspec as we call it. Yeah. There are quite a lot of people in the LGBT who don't think asexuality belongs, but most of the LGBT community does accept us. I think a lot of the times some LGBT people don't think that we belong because they don't think we experience discrimination the same way as obviously lesbians and gays and transsexual people do. But in a way you do, because we tend to be quite blind or sometimes even repulsed by sexual imagery and sexual thoughts. And we live in a world where we're surrounded by it. You can barely watch a TV program without some kind of sex or romance scene. And yeah, that is a form of discrimination against us because society as a whole doesn't cater for asexual people. I mean, I've never particularly faced personal discrimination. But for example, you've got people who work in offices who may be asexual, and they've got workers around them trying to make flirting or trying to approach them, trying to attract them, sort of thing. And that is a form of discrimination. Because a lot of the time as well, we tend to be quite blind to a lot of asexuals tend to be blind to these subtle hints that other people give off because we've got no idea that somebody else is trying to be attractive towards us.
Yeah.
And it can be quite traumatic for a lot of people when they realise that somebody they've worked with and trusted has those feelings towards them. So yeah, I believe that we belong within the LGBT community. We're a bit misunderstood, really.
You also have gender and age dysphoria. Can you say a bit about that, please?
Right. Well, the gender dysphoria. Right. I'll start from the start then. When I was about 15, maybe 14, 15 years old, I started thinking, I don't want to be a boy. I don't want to be male. I don't associate with any of these men around me. I don't want to play sports like them. I'm not interested in the same things like girls and dating and this type of thing. Obviously, that's an aromantic thing as well. I just had no interest in most of the male pursuits. And I just, again, felt so distant from other boys around me. And when I was like 17, 18 years old, I started thinking, well, maybe I should have been born a girl then. And I had a phase where I'd wear my coat off my shoulders. I had quite long hair. And I'd sort of try to act more feminine, and it felt really, really, really good to me. But that was a phase that passed, and I just thought, I don't really want to be either. I consider myself null gender. I don't really identify as masculine or feminine. But it was always still there, bubbling inside my head. As I say, I do tabletop roleplay gaming. And I've always had a preference, if not a need, to play a female character. Because I can't relate to men. I can't relate to masculinity or male characters. And a few years ago, I was on the Asexuality, Visibility and Education Network forums that they're called AVEN. And I said, is there a word for somebody like me where I don't particularly feel male or female? I don't identify as masculine or feminine. But when I imagine myself as being a woman, it makes me feel really, really euphoric. And they came up with this word that's called demigirl or demi-female, which is basically you feel partially female or partially feminine. And it was like unlocking a door. And my self-confidence since then to realise I wasn't the only person experiencing this was... My confidence just gone through the roof. I immediately started going to pride events, getting involved with the asexual and the transgender communities, and it's been a massive source of relief and comfort to me. And now I've taken what I've learned from that and tried to put that forward to help other people who are going through the same question stage that I was. And this also rolls into the age dysphoria. Now, when I was 15, 16 years old, I used to say to myself, I don't want to get any older. I don't want to be older than this. And obviously, when I became an adult, it became more and more difficult. But again, through role-play gaming, I've managed to sort of assuage this a little bit. Effectively, I still wished I was a teenager. I don't want adult responsibilities. Sometimes adult responsibilities overwhelm me. And I think everybody goes through that a little bit, but when I see a character that I can relate to on the screen, which is a young female character, or if I create my own self-insert character into a piece of media in my own head, I'm always happiest if I can imagine myself as a young female character, teenage. And it's just sort of like my happy space sort of thing. But it's very difficult to explain things to people because as soon as you say anything about, I've got age dysphoria, people immediately think of ABDL. I'm sure you've heard of ABDL, no. Which is basically adult baby diaper lovers. It's generally a fetish scene within the age play community, as I suppose it would be called. And people immediately think, oh, you're one of those people who like to dress up in nappies and this type of thing. And that's definitely not me. My mental age or my emotional age is like early teens, mid-teens. And neither does it mean that I have any interest in children. That's such a hard thing to explain to somebody. It's not like, I don't have any kind of interest in people in that kind of way at all, let alone somebody who's underage. But that's the immediate thoughts that a lot of people get from it. and it's not something I talk about very openly because of that. Not necessarily because I'm ashamed of it, but because I'm worried about how people will misperceive somebody like myself who experiences age dysphoria.
Yeah.
But then again, I mean, even people who are ABDL, there's no way I'll shame them, because most of the people who do that type of age play stuff, it's a coping mechanism. It doesn't necessarily mean that they have had mental trauma, but a lot of them have had mental trauma. And by age playing, it puts them into a state where they are happy and comfortable. I suppose it has like almost meditative type qualities in a way, that you can escape the world around you and go into the world where you are safe and happy.
Yeah.
And as I say, it's just hard to explain to people that no, it's not a fetish. Being age dysphoric is not a fetish. It's a coping mechanism. I don't believe that I ever really emotionally matured. I'm reasonably intelligent, but my emotional maturity, I think I struggle with. And again, that could come down to neurodiversity. That could come down to being autistic. When people say that somebody who's autistic or has mental health issues has a mental age of whatever, they really mean it.
Yeah.
That's where your emotional age is. It's just that because I am articulate and I'm able to talk and function mostly normally, people don't see there's a lot going on inside there. And obviously there's with other people as well. There must be loads of people out there who are having mini mental health crises, but you can't see it because we're articulate.
Yeah.
And it makes it more difficult in a way to find help and to find understanding, because people just say, oh, he's just normal. He's just a normal person, but they don't see what's going on inside the head.
No, of course. You've previously expressed concerns about having hormone therapy in case it causes a rise in sexual attraction because you're happy with being asexual. Can you say a little bit about this?
I suspected partly because my asexuality that I may have low testosterone. So I took the test a couple of years ago, and it does show that I do have low testosterone. And again, as I was saying with being trans as well, partly I'd sort of like to transition to be feminine. But on the other hand, is it because of the low testosterone? And I did think about taking testosterone therapy to try and see if that helped me out in that kind of way. But I was worried that if I start taking testosterone, that I will start to become more, get more sexual attraction towards people. And I don't want to do that, because I don't think that I'm mentally capable of dealing with that kind of attraction.
Yeah.
But again, I think it all ties in, because by being asexual, that means I'm not in the emotional situations to make me feel more adult. But because I don't feel particularly more adult because of my emotional age, attractions is kind of scary to me. Yeah. So I think it all feeds into the same sort of the same line of issue.
You spoke about having aphantasia, which commonly co-occurs with alexithymia. Can you say a little bit can we elaborate on that a little bit?
Basically, it's lack of mind's eye. I can't close my eyes, see something, and imagine it. Yeah. And it's like some people can say, if you say, imagine an apple. If you can close your eyes and you can actually physically see an apple, that's something I can't do. All I see is black. Yeah. I can't transmit things that I want to think, or things I want to see to actual vision. I can't translate that at all. It's hard to explain something that I don't experience. But for example, I can't envision something that's going on inside my head. And likewise, say if I'm reading a book, I can't envision the things that are happening within the book. It's just words on a page to me. So it's very difficult for me to get involved in anything like that, because like with any project, that somebody works on, you've got a vision of what the end product looks like. Now, I don't get that at all. If I close my eyes and try to imagine something that I want to create, I just get a blank space. I get nothing at all. Everybody gets like the little white flashes in your eyes. That's just the photofluorescence, as it's called, from the back of the eye. I get that, but I can't actually envision something in front of me that I'm trying to imagine. There's a quite a common test online that does the rounds where it's got it says imagine a red star, and there's 4 boxes. One's got a very vivid red star, then it's a little bit more faint, and the third one's more fainter still, and the last one is totally black. Now, if somebody says to me, imagine a red star, as try as I might, I cannot see anything. I just see total black. I've never been able to understand how people can see things they're trying to imagine, if you know what I mean. Again, it's hard to explain something that I don't get. But, like, for example, people see billboards with attractive ladies on them trying to advertise things, and they say sex sells and this type of thing. But to me, it doesn't, because what I see doesn't connect with my brain correctly. And on the other hand, if I try to imagine an attractive lady or whatever, I can't do that. So it's almost like a disconnect between my brain and imagery, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. What about like being a child? Like, kids have wild imaginations. They're always thinking, and like, their brains work different as they develop, obviously. What was you like as a kid?
I don't know how different it really was to anybody else. I mean, I obviously had comic books and watched cartoons on TV and things like this. And, I enjoyed role playing. I still do like tabletop role play gaming. But again, it's hard for me to imagine myself in that setting. I need a basis of a world or a scenario for me to place myself into. Whereas creating stories out of complete nothing, I can't really do that.
What was that like coming of age? I mean, growing up, trying to work out who you are and what your place in the world, it's got to be difficult for anyone growing up, making that transition from like being young to being an adult. What was that like for yourself? How did you?
It was quite easy for me. I mean, I had really good parents, solid family, home life, and everything like this. So, as I say, I mean, back then I knew that I didn't see things when I tried to imagine them. But on the other hand, I didn't realize I was different than anybody else. I thought everybody was like me.
Yeah.
Like I was saying before, but like with the imagery on billboards, they say sex sells. I thought they're making this up. Nobody actually sees a billboard and wants that product. Surely nobody does that. But obviously, I've learned since then that some people do. A lot of people do.
And
but for me, I didn't really have any problem with it.
Yeah. Do you think that having so many of these conditions can be isolating or make it difficult to relate to the majority of other people?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah.
Is this something you think about?
It is. Because obviously you've got marketeers and PR people who specialize in how to get inside people's heads. And it doesn't work on me. But on the other hand, media is created for the neurotypical people who do have the mind's eye, they have physical and sexual attractions and ongoing deep emotions. And that makes me feel very isolated because there's just not enough information about us and what helps us.
And what was your goal about coming on the podcast today?
I was asked to come along, and I just thought to give it a try. I mean, this would have been unthinkable to me a few years ago, before I started finding out more about myself with my gender and sexual identity, and obviously with aphantasia and derealization. I couldn't have done this, absolutely not. But if I can give information that helps others, then that's my goal, I suppose, if anything. For example, when I'm at work, I wear my pride bracelets So if somebody who maybe isn't out yet or isn't quite confident with their sexuality or gender identity, if they can see those bands that I'm wearing and feel connection between them and me, and it makes them realize that they're not alone, that's my goal there. So I suppose my intention really is to spread information, spread more understanding about these situations that I'm going through.
Absolutely. And for anyone that is watching that is afflicted by any of these conditions, and you feel like you need someone to talk to, or you can jump to the comments. There'll always be someone. Hopefully, that one of us will always respond, and there are always people out there. You always have that, just as a little, And finally, what are your plans for the future, and how do you plan to manage your various conditions?
Well, I'm waiting for this autism assessment and try to see what therapies and assistance are going to come through that. If anybody does ever experience or think they associate with what I was saying about aplatonicism, I have started a subreddit on Reddit called r/aplatonic. So if anybody does feel that they have trouble with interpersonal connections and feeling emotional towards other people, you're more than happy to pop along there, and myself and some of the other regulars there will do our best to try and help you through it. Just because you don't particularly feel interpersonal connections with somebody doesn't necessarily mean that you're broken. It doesn't mean that you're wrong. It's just another way of thinking, and we're there to try and help you work through whatever your concerns are with interpersonal connection and emotions. I could also help recommend people to good other places on the internet to deal with asexuality and aromanticism. As I said, I'd like to mention the AVEN website, which is a great resource for people who are asexual and aromantic, or think that they are asexual or aromantic. That's the primary information source, and if anybody wants to contact me at all, then I'll make a comment in the comments of this video, and if anyone wants to reply to me, then I'll do my best to get back to them.
The same for myself. I'll drop my email down below. We have I've got a link in the description below where it'll be my other podcast, my book, which is available on Amazon Kindle. I'm just going to throw that out there. But my email is in there as well. So if anyone ever does feel like they're alone or wants to chat, then I always make sure that's available. Just, there's always someone. So thank you.
Well, I was just thinking, if you want to, do you want to put one of my email addresses down there as well?
Absolutely.
Right. So my email will be guzzyhero, which is GUZZIHERO @outlook.com. And if anybody has any questions about the things that I've spoken about today, whether it be asexuality, gender identity, alexithymia, aphantasia, depersonalization, derealization, or age dysphoria, I'll always do my best. If I can't help you, I could do my best to direct you somewhere that can.
Thank you so much. Thank you for taking the time to talk to us, Chris. I really appreciate it.